Hey, everybody. Hey, I wanted to come out and share a little bit about a day that's coming up here in just a few days. And I wanted to share my testimony and a little bit about it. As you know, I know many of us, think that, we're all on the same page, and we're not. We're all at different stages and different growths and different places in our walk with the Lord. And, some people just might not understand this part of things as well as somebody who has known about this for a while. So I wanted to share and led to share and come out and say a few things about this because of several reasons. And first, I wanted to share that, first of all, Halloween is Satan's most holy day. And this day of the year is when he laughs that so many Christian parents allow their children to participate in this day. And a lot of churches, which Jesus tells us to make sure that we are not deceived in the last days, will also turn it into something which they think is innocent, like a fall festival, where, you dress your kids up in angelic type costumes and you still go and get candy and everything else, right? And rides, hay rides, and everything like this, right? But they don't understand, or they're misleading you to think that it's innocent when it's not. So having anything to do with these things, as we are told in 1 Thessalonians 5:22 and 3 John 11, that we're not to have anything to do with this. So yesterday morning, for some reason, I haven't had the TV on in a very long time. Well, one of the very first things that I saw when I turned it on was, well, this is cray, but I'm going to throw this in here. It has nothing to do with this. But I saw, I have no idea if it was a commercial or what. I was at the end, but it was like one of them cars with the doors that come up on the side. And it had the license plate that says, "I'm out of here." And I'm like, what? Okay. Well, right after that, there was the news saying that Halloween is canceled this year. And I'm thinking, wow, how awesome is that, right? Something we don't have to be worrying about this year at all. As you know, I used to think that it was pretty innocent and that, hey, if I could pass out tracts or pennies or something like this, what, I could still be innocently doing the work of the Lord, but yet I'm still participating in this day, as it is All Hallows Eve, right? And there's a whole lot of meaning behind this, as right behind it on November 1st would be All Souls Day. We know that to be from the Catholic Church to honor and pray for their dead. Okay, so let's go back to the origin of Halloween in the first place. And I wanted to add a few other things that I noticed the similarities of. Okay, so it was actually an ancient Celtic tradition, and it was started by the Celtics and the Druids. And there was a man called Stingy Jack. And Stingy Jack was a guy who, back in the day, did some horrible things and liked to play tricks on people as well and steal things from them. So he wasn't a really nice guy. And the word witches actually means wise woman. So some believe that they're white witches and they're practicing good magic, while others are black witches, and we know what their practicing, okay? So then we see that this actually started by carving out turnips. And then the next thing is that they were carving apples. So I just found it ironic that this started also 2,000 years ago. Coincidence? No. And with an apple? No coincidences, right? It sounds like they're mocking God to me. Okay, and the reason why it actually, All Souls Day used to be in May, and they moved it to November because they believed that it was the end of summer, and the dead would return to earth on that one night because the veil would be thinning, and we know the veil is thinning, and it's the beginning of a dark, cold winter. And when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness. Okay, so we have two candidates, and one of them has said that it's going to be a dark winter. So I thought about that right away. And then I thought about the fact that we know that several have said that this would be our last Christmas. All right, well, to us Christians, Christmas would be the celebration of Christ, where we know that their most holy day would be October 31st, right? Could it mean their last Christmas? Because I found out also that Halloween comes in number 2 to Christmas as far as spending money and on costumes, decorations, and candy and gifts. This is crazy. It goes way back. And there's a lot of things. So if you Google anything or just look it up, there's a deep, dark reason for bobbing for apples, jack-o'-lanterns, and that's where we get Stingy Jack from. Because, well, as old history goes, or I can put the link underneath there, it talks about how Stingy Jack made a deal with the devil to pay for his drink one night, and the devil said that he would come back in 10 years to claim his soul, in which Stingy Jack asked for an apple as his last request. And so that goes back to the Garden of Eden, right? So the Stingy Jack may have been a legend or whatever, but they're saying that this is how it all started. And actually, you know, if you look at Baal and all these other things, it goes way back into and associated with all of these dark things. And this is the time of year, y'all. I am from New England, and I know Salem, Massachusetts very well. And there's a witch on every corner. And they practice seances, they practice Ouija board, fortune telling, all the way back from 2,000 years ago. And that Salem, Massachusetts still does this. And I've talked to many myself who told me that they take black cats and especially blonde-haired, blue-eyed children for sacrifices and things like this, all right? So this is a very dark time of year. Not only that, but we have the 31st this year, which will be a blood moon, as well as a blue moon, and a full moon. And don't forget, it's All Hallows Eve that night, and the next day is All Souls Day. So the meaning of the jack-o'-lanterns and things like that, of course, Stingy Jack is where we got the name for the jack-o'-lanterns, but it actually wasn't a pumpkin to begin with. It actually, I think, was a turnip, and then it was an apple. And then when it came to America is when they saw the plenty of pumpkins that we've had, and so therefore they started to use that as tradition goes. But look up the meaning of everything, including the masks and everything else, because as the story goes, is that anybody that goes out on this night dressed up in a costume, because they believe that the dead spirits, which were out there, would be tricked and fooled and not recognize them as a person, and could be one of them. So they felt that they could trick them. All right. So it's either trick or treat. That's how trick or treat came about as well. Isn't it crazy? So we see that, we know that there is only, as in 1 Timothy 2:5 says, that therefore there is only one God and one mediator between man and God, and that's Jesus. And we know 1 Thessalonian 5:22 how to have nothing with the unfruitfulness of these things, and 3 John 11, and Proverbs 22:6, and which we bring up our children in the ways of the Lord, right? And they will continue on that path. So I know that when my kids were young, there was a time when I found all this out. They were still young, yet I never let them feel left out, and I never brought them to a fall festival at all, as we would take them out to dinner, a good movie, popcorn, and so that way they had their night, they had their fun, they had their time, and we were not celebrating that day in any way, shape, or form. And so I know that many out here may not understand it, but just thinking about Halloween being canceled. Oh, okay, well, that's really great. Thank you, Jesus. But does that mean it's our last Christmas? Meaning their last Christmas? You see what I'm saying? And the fact that the article from Wikipedia talks about how they held it on the 31st because it's the beginning of the dark, cold winter. And we know that to be Sleepy Joe's verbiage the other day about it being it's going to be a dark winter. Okay? So, could we mean EMP? Could we mean all kinds of things? And or could it be nuclear? I don't know. It could be a lot of things the way the Bible's going right now and what's happening over in the Middle East and what's happening everywhere in the world. But even the masks go back to this, and the meaning of the mask and hiding of the face and why they did all these things. So they're performing rituals and sacrifices, whether or not it's canceled. They're still doing this anyway, so it's a day that we must pray, definitely pray. And the fact that it started 2,000 years ago, I think is just mocking Jesus and believing that the veils are the thinnest and allowing the evil spirits to come through and find their way home so that they can honor their dead, right? They actually cook up food and cakes and everything else and special things for this. It's pretty cray. Thank you, Jesus, that I'm not into anything like this, right? But it's a night of supernatural worship and not of God, okay? Definitely not of God. And I know many of you might debate it or question it, which I have no problem. Feel free to leave a comment or a question. But, the dressing up is to elude the other ghosts into believing that they're one of them. So, if we're looking at that right there, I mean, that says a lot. And putting a mask on your face, right? To try to trick people. And that's where trick or treat comes out, right? Are we having blackouts and sacrifices and all this other stuff? And we see all the meteor showers and everything else that's happening. I know that my electronics have been working really crazy today, and I'm sure yours are as well. But I just know that there's something pretty dark that's just about to happen. And the closer that we get to the election, I know that Israel is holding back on everything right now to wait to see which way this goes, because we got one for Israel and we got one that's not for Israel, all right? So our election has the whole world on edge right now. So also during this time is when, the they would, the druids and the witches and things would sing and dance and do fortune telling and do ghost stories and talk about the dead and their dead relatives and things like this. And they have lanterns up and down their walkways so that the dead spirits could find their way back to the house and things like this, right? So we have candles that we put on our windows as we are lighthouses and we are the light of the world. Not that we're in the darkness, okay? Especially on this day. And this day is the day that we actually should be on our knees praying for those as they are sacrificing and they are doing all these other things, and the fact that there's a blood moon and a full moon and a blue moon all on the same day as well. So we got a triple header coming up here as well. So I just thought I wanted to share a little bit of this for you all. Take it to prayer and take it to the Lord, and don't get defensive about it or anything else, or let's not judge people on where they are and their walk with the Lord, as they may not know, as well as like quote saying things like pagan holidays and things like that. As I take like Thanksgiving and Christmas, and those are days when you get together with your family and you eat and things like this, right? Or if you don't have any family or friends or whatever, or it's a very lonely time. But the opposite on Halloween, that is for sure. There's a lot of activity going on in the spirit as we fight not against flesh and blood, but principalities and the powers of this world. Yet, we know what time it is as well, and we are in the season. Absolutely. In the 30s in Texas. This is cray. So I'm getting my baked beans going so we can go through that tomorrow. But I wanted to come out and share that don't be deceived in thinking that it's innocent and that you can dress your kids up as little angels and go to fall festivals and at the churches and things like that. It's just a way for churches to bring in people, right, into their church, but yet they're not telling them the truth and what this day is all about, or they'd be taking a stand for Jesus and saying, no, we won't have anything to do with this day whatsoever, other than maybe a prayer service. And I used to love to go and do prayer services on All Hallows Eve, okay, as well. So there are many things that we can do, so don't be deceived, or as we know that this is not a good day of the year. And like I said, we got a triple header with the full moon, the blue moon, and the blood moon. And my goodness, we're so close. Things are crazy right now, aren't they? All right. So with saying all that, I'm just going to say that this is Debbie from Texas. And I'm saying peace out. Maranatha. Let's keep looking up because our King is coming.